So I mean, I kind of listen to the guitar or something like that. So I can't really say, you know, I mean, if somebody plays a great guitar like that,
She didn't just cross genres. She erased the borders. Linda Ronstadt built a career on immaculate pitch. Unforgiving taste, and a willingness to gamble her reputation on what sounded true. Rock radio crowned her a superstar. The country charts welcomed her like family. And then, just when labels begged for more of the same, she walked straight into standards and mariachi like she'd lived there all along.
Be with some of my friends.
But your fans who come want to hear very often.
I even get tired of the music from this century. You know, I like to have some music from another century immediately.
That's the real story here. A singer who treated songs like living rooms with rules, architecture, and soul. And because she held her own voice to brutal standards, she held everyone else's to them too. The 6 names you're about to hear weren't just colleagues. They were lodestars, artists who sharpened her instincts, cracked open new phrasing in her delivery, or reminded her that emotion beats polish every time. One of them would even pull her into the Great American Songbook when the move looked like career suicide. Another would show her that grit and vulnerability can ride the same melody. And yes, the top spot will surprise you. Not because it's obscure, but because of how completely it rewired her singing. Ready? Let's open the door and step into the rooms where Linda's taste was forged. 1. Neil Young. He sang in splinters. She sang in glass. When Linda stepped into Neil Young's orbit, she wasn't chasing polish. She was chasing nerve. Those early encounters dropped her into a barnwood universe where the best take wasn't the cleanest. It was the one that breathed. You can hear it in the way her tone rides his weathered melodies like soft light on rough timber. That contrast, his ragged immediacy against her crystalline control, retrained her instincts. Neil never treated expectations like a leash. He treated them like a door he could walk through whenever the song demanded. He zigzagged from whispered confession to feedback squall, and never apologized for the whiplash. Linda paid attention. On stage, his unpredictability nudged her out of safe runs. In the studio, his conversational phrasing encouraged her to trade symmetry for feel. She didn't abandon craft, she weaponized it. Precision became a choice, not a prison. If a note frayed in service of the moment, so be it. The moment would land louder than any perfect sustain. And when her clarity threaded through his jagged guitar textures, the chemistry felt inevitable, like river water polishing stone. What she took from Neil wasn't just a sound, it was a stance. Trust your compass, even when the signs point elsewhere. Refuse the neat box. Leave room for accident, because accident is often honesty arriving ahead of schedule. After Neil, her phrasing carried more air at the edges, the kind of space where a listener leans forward without noticing. She kept her signature purity, but the lines flexed, breathed, and occasionally dared to wobble. On purpose. Think of Neil as the match, and Linda as the crystal. Strike the match, hold it to the glass, and the whole room warms. It wasn't louder, it was truer, and she never looked back. Number 2. Emmylou Harris. Some singers are great alone, some are historic in company. Linda with Emmylou Harris belongs to the second category. Their blend wasn't merely pretty, it was engineered. Every interval felt chosen, not guessed, like two architects solving the same room from opposite corners. Emmylou brought deep-rooted knowledge of old songs, the family tree of every melody and who first carried it. Linda brought an unforgiving ear for balance, air, and pitch. In rehearsal, they'd chip away at syllables until the vowel color matched, letting a note bloom and then taper so the harmony breathed as one. It wasn't fussy for its own sake. It was devotion to the idea that tradition survives when you treat it with precision and warmth at the same time. When Dolly Parton stepped into that circle, the chemistry snapped into focus. Suddenly, you could hear Appalachia, Sonora, and Laurel Canyon sharing a single heartbeat. Emmylou's instinct for line placement, where to float above, where to tuck below, helped Linda relax the steel in her tone without losing clarity. And Linda's laser-like center kept the blend from turning to mist. Together, they made tight sound natural and natural sound inevitable. That's why those harmonies feel weightless. The hard work hides inside the ease. The influence lasted. After these projects, you can hear more air at the ends of Linda's phrases, more conversation in her cadences, less need to muscle a chorus to make it land. Harmony became a teacher, not a garnish. It taught restraint, patience, and the courage to leave space for someone else's truth inside your own line. And it proved something bigger. Blend isn't the absence of ego. It's agreeing to point your ego at the same star. With Emmylou, Linda didn't just sing with someone. She learned how to sing for the song. Number 3. Jackson Browne. If Neil taught her to risk the take, Jackson Browne taught her to risk the thought. In those early LA years, Linda moved through the same gravity field as Browne, where songs weren't performed so much as confessed. His writing felt like journal pages that happened to rhyme, and it gave her permission to stop gilding every line. Listen to how she began shaping vowels closer to speech, letting breath fall where a real conversation would. That shift wasn't an accident. It was exposure. Sharing rooms, stages, and friends with Browne, she absorbed the power of the unforced line. No vocal gymnastics to sell a chorus. Just a humane read that trusts the lyric to carry its own weight. She could still detonate a refrain when she wanted to, but with Browne's sensibility in her ear, she didn't need to. The drama moved from volume to meaning. She learned to leave a little daylight at the end of phrases, to let silence finish the sentence, to let a cracked syllable say what a run never could. Bring that back into rock and country arrangements, and everything changes. The songs don't merely sound good, they feel lived in, like a conversation that wandered into melody and forgot to leave. Browne's biggest gift was restraint with purpose. He showed that sincerity outruns fireworks, that clarity can be a special effect, and that a singer's job isn't to dominate a song, but to let it introduce itself. Once Linda internalized that, the polish didn't vanish. It matured. Fewer flourishes, cleaner angles, more truth. It's the difference between a beautiful noise and a grown-up performance, between singing at you and speaking to you in tune. But then came a voice that didn't just influence her. It humbled her. Number 4. Neville. Linda's range could cut crystal. Neville's could turn it to water. The first time they traded lines, audiences heard technique surrender to feeling, and feeling reach back with cathedral grace. Neville sings like a prayer that discovered falsetto. Linda meets him with tones so pure it feels like a held breath. Together, they didn't duet. They conversed. What Linda drew from Aaron wasn't just ornament, it was intention. He treats vowels like they're holy. She mirrors him by stripping the excess from her phrasing until only meaning glows. The result is two artists refusing to outsing one another and choosing instead to outlisten. Listen to how she shadows his gentle lifts, then eases underneath with a line that sounds both supportive and fearless, the way a harmony becomes a hand on your shoulder. That humility became a late career superpower. After working with Aaron, you can hear her chasing resonance over volume, clarity over acrobatics, and time over theatrics. Letting silences breathe until the room answers back. Neville proved you can be elaborate without being showy and spiritual without being vague. Linda took that lesson everywhere. The opera pit, the mariachi stand, the quiet middle of a ballad that doesn't need a spotlight so much as a steady heart. She still had horsepower to spare, but she learned to idle it, to turn steel into silk at will. That's why those performances feel less like demonstrations and more like invitations. They ask you closer, lower your guard, and then deliver the line that matters. In Aaron, she found a partner who made restraint sound huge, who made purity feel dangerous. In Linda, he found a singer who could hold the light steady while the emotion did the moving. Together, they proved intimacy can thunder louder than any arena-sized chorus, reshaping her choices. Number 5. Dolly Parton. Dolly is a songwriter first and an empire second, and that's what won Linda over. Beneath the glitter is a craftsperson who hears songs arrive fully formed and then sands them until the grain shines. Linda is a legendary interpreter. Dolly draws the maps. Put them together with Emmylou Harris and the room tilts. Suddenly, the famous Ronstadt precision relaxes into Dolly's mountain logic. If the lyric is honest and the melody true, let the performance breathe. The harmonies feel inevitable not because they're loud, but because they're true. In those sessions, Dolly's fearlessness around simplicity changed the stakes. She could pivot from pop gloss to front porch plain in a heartbeat. And that made simple feel brave instead of basic. Whenever perfectionism started tightening the air, Dolly disarmed the room with a joke, a new verse out of thin air, or a reminder that the song, not the singer, has to win. Linda learned she didn't have to choose between commercial reach and roots integrity. In the right circle, that's a false dilemma. Listen closely to the records that followed. There's more earth in Linda's vowels, more porch in her phrasing, more trust in gravity. She lets a line fall half a step sooner, knowing the truth lands heavier when you don't push it. Dolly didn't dilute Ronstadt. She distilled her. The lesson stuck beyond country. It shaped the way Linda approached standards and mariachi, where humility, breadth, and story outrank volume. Number 6. Nelson Riddle. Call it the bravest left turn. A rock icon ringing the doorbell of America's most elegant arranger. On paper, it looked reckless. On tape, it sounded truly inevitable. Nelson Riddle didn't rescue Linda from rock. He revealed a chamber in her voice where time lives. Under his baton, she learned the grammar of silence. Breathe with the strings. Shape a consonant like a symbol. And let a note end a heartbeat early so the orchestra can finish the sentence. He didn't sand down her power. He aimed it, focusing that famous clarity into lines that floated rather than pushed. In the room, he treated each chart like architecture, and Linda like the light that makes it legible. He would tilt a harmony, nudge a woodwind phrase, then ask for less vibrato, more patience, more truth. She answered with precision that felt tender, not cold. Vowels blooming, consonants clicking, breath placed like punctuation. Ballads turned into little films of restraint and release. Mid-tempo standards glided instead of flexed. The surprise wasn't that she could sing them. It was how naturally she inhabited them, as if the songbook had been waiting for her particular color of air. Power stayed in reserve, meaning moved to the front. Culture noticed. Critics heard phrasing where they expected display, intent where they expected nostalgia. Audiences who met her through rock discovered another register, poise. The wager paid off. It reset her compass. After Riddle, she entered mariachi and opera as rooms in the same house, confident in melody, breath, and quiet grace. That's the legacy of the partnership. He handed her a map drawn in half notes and rests, and she followed it into forever. She didn't survive the transition. She mastered it, proving that a great voice doesn't chase eras. It invites them in and teaches them to listen. Taste is a muscle. Linda worked it until it could carry entire eras. She respected bravado, sure, but she loved courage, the kind that risks comfort for truth. Neil showed her that the mess is sometimes the magic. Emmylou proved harmony can be precision's warmest friend. Browne reminded her that sincerity outruns fireworks. Neville taught her to anchor technique to purpose. Dolly rewired her idea of simple. And Riddle opened a door to forever. That's not a list. It's a blueprint for how to be great without getting small. How to expand your range while narrowing your excuses. If you think someone else belongs on this list, Joni, Ry Cooder, the Eagles, make your case in the comments. Because in Linda's world, the only unforgivable sin was pretending. Everything else was just music. And the music, when it's honest, wins.